settima edizione, secondo giorno del festival. Grazie a tutte le scuole connesse con noi. 22 school connected with us in this moment. I really want to thank everybody in Italy, because you have many schools in Milano, Naples, Roma, everywhere. But thank you, grazie a tutti i ragazzi studenti che sono qui, grazie al professor Arcangeli, oggi siete numerosissimi. Thank you to be here, so really welcome to all of you. And I'm very proud today that we have a really important guest, an actor that I really admire. And with this conversation we try to share more about his career, about his life. He's a great person, a great human being, because I have the way, in these 2 days I understand immediately his feeling. And I'm so proud to have here John David Washington.
Thank you.
Ringrazio anche Vittorio Base che condurrà questa conversazione.
So, thank you so much for being here, John David. I'm such a big fan. I'm an admirer of your work, and I want to talk to you about the first movie that made me realize you are such a great actor, which is Malcolm and Marie. Oh, wow. I wanted to ask you about the mannerism of your character. I'm thinking about two things in particular, which is the way he eats the pasta in the movie. We're in Italy, so land of the pasta. And also the pacing around the room during your incredible monologue. How much of his mannerisms are yours, and how much did you have to invent?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for having me at this wonderful festival. I'm really enjoying myself, and it's such an honor and a privilege to be able to share my work and my passion for the arts with people that are just as passionate. So thank you. This is a real honor. Malcolm and Marie, I mean, wow, that is a toxic relationship. This was an artist, and I understand we have filmmakers and actors here.
Yes.
So,
yes, most want to be actor.
So we're looking at Malcolm was a person that was finally having his work recognized, and yet getting torn down at the same time from the reviews. So the mannerisms and his mania came from his insecurity of his artistry. So I started to think about when I first started and how insecure I was when it came to feedback, and I just started to think about somebody who I'm not really like Malcolm at all, but somebody that arrogant too and confident in his abilities, yet getting chopped down, what that does to his psyche and what that psyche can inform the physical embodiment of his physical, of his mental state at that time. So because of the words that were so beautifully written by Sam Levinson, I felt that that kind of dictated the pace and the almost like sloppiness of his pacing. That being said, he was also really drunk. Yeah. But they also say not to play drunk. You don't want to, like, a lot of times when you're drunk, you're trying to act like you're not drunk. So there's a part of that was in there as well.
A lot of layers.
A lot of layers.
So it was shot during COVID, right?
Yes.
You, Zendaya, and Sam in a house.
Yes.
And being such an intimate movie, I want to talk about your character for a second more. Did you have a say in the songs? For example, at the beginning, he sings and dances to Down and Out in New York City. Did you pick that song in particular, or any other of the songs in the movie?
I did get to pick, not that one though. He loved that song, and he always Sam always wanted to use it in one of his films one day, and so he got his opportunity. I chose the end credits song, Liberation by Outkast. Is any people familiar with Outkast at all?
I think they are. Maybe not. I think I am.
You are, okay.
Yeah.
So they're one of my favorite groups of any musical genre. And what that song in particular embodies or talks about is the very thing our movie is about. Trying to find themselves as an artist, and then how the industry can change the artistry and how it pulls at you. And so I just thought, I just threw it in the hat, and he ended up liking it, and so we used it at the end. So that was a song. And I was listening to a lot of Outkast while I was shooting too.
Okay. And I want to bring up your co-star from Malcolm and Marie, Zendaya. She has incredible success with everything she does. Another one with Challengers right now, and I'm bringing it up because you've also had the chance of working with Luca Guadagnino as a producer, though. He was the producer on a movie, Beckett. Can you tell us something about that movie and about Guadagnino and the chance you had, since he's an Italian director and we're here in Italy?
Yes, well, Ferdinando was the director, and Luca was a producer, but it was very familial. You know, it was very family-oriented. It felt like a passion project, almost. I don't call it a student film, but it had the essence and the spirit of that into making it for the love of cinema. And that felt very good to me. Unfortunately, we didn't really get to film in Italy. We filmed it in Greece, which also was very nice, though. But I just loved how they communicated what they wanted, the discussions of films. We had interesting discussions before a take sometimes. We'd have, Ferdy and I would have a debate, healthy debate about Coldplay songs, and then we roll right into a take. And you know, usually that can be distracting, but in this case, it felt kind of fitting for the circumstances the character was under for some reason. And I think that just goes to the trust I had for Ferdy and Luca. But I just felt in such good hands, and they know so much about films. Like they were putting me on all kinds of movies, and we talk about it through, you know, Luca would cook his risotto, and we'd eat and talk about films, and it was just, it was a beautiful experience.
And speaking about other great directors you had the chance to work with, Spike Lee, one of the greatest ever, greatest living directors. And you've known Spike from a long time before you were acting. And how was it, the transition from, let's say, family friend to director and then collaborator?
Well, he gave me my first role. I was in Malcolm X,
yeah.
as the first little kid that stands up and says, "I'm Malcolm X." So that was me. Yeah, it was a surreal moment. You know, a moment in my career where I just felt like I actually saw the change and what was possible. Not just where I was in my career, but the work itself, how he approaches filmmaking, art, and collaboration. You know, I wasn't used to that, the way he welcomed my ideas and my instincts. In fact, he was a big advocate for my instincts, my instinctual take on certain scenes. He gave me so much freedom and the confidence. And I think directors out there that give an actor confidence through trust it's so important. It's so freeing, and it can help ultimately enhance the film that, you know, hopefully is rooted in truth and honesty, which he enabled me to do.
And you play Ron Stallworth in BlacKkKlansman, and he actually exists. And then I asked the same question to Coleman Domingo yesterday. So how do you approach as an actor playing someone that exists rather than creating a new character from scratch, let's say?
Well, you want to honor the man. At least I wanted to. You know, I wanted to respect the story. It was a true story. And in America, you know, racism is instituted in a lot of ways. It's you inherit the hate that you have somebody, and you might not even know why until it's taught to you. So I wanted to incorporate that. I wanted to incorporate the time. So a lot of the things I do is I wouldn't listen to any more rap, so no Outkast for that. It was a lot of
70s and 80s music.
Exactly. I would go to YouTube and look at it was a program. I'd watch movies. I'd watch I would just watch a whole bunch of movies from the 70s. Soul Train. It's a big program in America where it's like a dancing show, and I would, you know, try to get my mannerisms and change my psyche up. I'd ask like my uncles and my different people I knew that were of that time what it was like, documentaries, things like that to get me into it. And I found that was effective when I'm literally not listening to any hip hop or R&B and just listening to the classic music. That really helped me.
And you also play a cop in Monsters and Men, but a different cop. And I loved your performance there. I think it's very underrated, if I can say so.
Thank you.
And how is it playing two different characters with the same job, same principles, we could say, in two different times, but in a different way? How do you change your perspective that drastically with a character that's could be the same moral base and values?
That's a good question. It was totally different. It was, you know, Monsters and Men was more of a contemporary tale of unfortunately a historic and antiquated divide in our country, and racism and how police officers conduct themselves in certain neighborhoods and against certain people. But the way in was I had ride-alongs, and I got to know some Brooklyn police officers, and it changed my perspective. I had way more respect for police officers and what they have to go through after having visited them and spent time with them. I was sort of on one side of the argument, and I had to give myself a moment of pause after those. I did about a month or so of ride-alongs, so I got to literally be with the police officer on everyday patrols. I saw some crazy stuff like during those ride-alongs.
In Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn, yes, and I have so much more respect for police officers doing it the right way, though, the ones who are doing it the right way. And so that was I found myself in very stressful nights after those ride-alongs and that experience. And I remember shaving my head, and I just remember when I watched the movie, I was like, man, I look stressed. The guy looked stressed because of, I think it was the time I put in with the police officers and what getting
On your nerves.
yeah, well, no, it was really getting an idea of what this, more of an idea of what this country, how divided we are, and how we do things.
I also want to speak to you about The Creator. We are screening it here at the festival. And when did you shoot the movie, if I may ask?
2022.
2022. So let's say a bit before everything that has happened, or during everything that's happened with AI, right?
Yeah, the discussion was more so, it was in vogue probably last year, right?
Okay,
so
yeah.
it was around when it came out, so it was before, yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, with everything that we know now and that has happened now, how does making such a movie shift your perspective on the whole idea of AI?
Shift my perspective.
It does.
I don't know. Yeah, that's something I'm still. That's a good question. It was interesting when diving into the Joshua character, into the script. Like, AI is programming. They always say in the movie, it's just programming. But sometimes can that be more effective than somebody who feels like they have to love you because they're related to you? Is the anthropomorphization of society, is that necessarily a bad thing if it means that we can save a child, if we can save a community? Something to think about. If we can have people patrolling and officiating our society in a peaceful way coming from an AI source, could that be more effective? These are things I started to think about. So it was ultimately, human love is the most powerful thing, and human connection is what I love, and it's what I love about our art form, and whether it be theater or cinema. So I always think, even like events like these, getting together at a festival and discussing films and cinema and art, there's nothing more powerful than that. However, it's something to think about in the consistency of maybe an AI that can provide kind of care and love. At least those were the things I was thinking about when shooting the film.
Of course. And then Tenet, of course, you're the leading man. Can you tell us a bit about how that came about? Did you audition? Did Christopher Nolan call you? What happened there?
So at the Cannes Film Festival, we screened Black Klansman for the first time, and he was sitting in front of us, Benicio del Toro, Naomi Campbell. He was in the building, and he saw that. Then I get up, so that was months before. Then months later, I get a call saying he wants to meet. I didn't know if it was I didn't think it was for. It didn't say anything specific, so I'm just like, Christopher Nolan.
Cool.
I'm just going, yeah, whatever you want to talk about, sir. You want to talk about rap, football? Like, what do you want to talk about? So we talked for, a couple hours, still nothing specific. And then I got the call later that he wants you to play the lead in his film, and it was one of the best days of my life. That call, and it's funny because I played football and I didn't get drafted. Usually the draft is like the biggest day, best day of a young athlete's life. That felt like I got drafted by an NFL team that day. It was. I was in tears. I was hugging my mom. We went out to dinner like 3 times, like just because to celebrate.
Of course. And you brought up football, and your debut was on the TV series Ballers, which is about football. How did being a football player help you in your first, let's say, big break, if I can call it that?
Yeah, apparently I was method acting my whole life.
Yeah, exactly.
Getting ready for that role. It was such an important role in series for me because it enabled us to share with people the plight, the experience of trauma, head trauma, the pressures of making it for your family through the football player's perspective. The football player, the American football player, got to tell his side of the story. A lot of times it can be one-sided when it comes to the press and how they cover athletes. So you get one side that can vilify them so easily. But with this show, it gave people, the average fan or the casual fan, the insight on what these young athletes go through on a daily basis and how much pressure from Sunday to Sunday there is on these young men who have to provide for their families and make a new life for themselves. How they are asked to be these, grown-ups, these adults, like literally after the draft when their bank account changes and they're not really nurtured through that. So I think it was an important show. It most certainly helped me and my career, obviously. But I was honestly too, because of the way football ended for me. It was like a love letter to my experience playing ball. I got to gracefully bow out of football through that show.
Very beautiful. And what is harder then, being an actor or being a football player, professional football player?
I would say a football player, but between what Ferdy put me through, what Gareth put me through on The Creator, and what obviously Christopher Nolan put me through with those freaking stunts, I say action film. So respect to, Sylvester Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme, all Jackie Chan.
Lundgren here.
Oh yeah, exactly. That was harder. I'd say it's harder, and there's more pressure to me. Like memorizing lines and stuff is a lot of pressure. Speaking in front of people, a lot of pressure.
For me too. Well, you're not only an actor, you're also a big lover of film and the art in general. And I know you know a lot about the art. So I would like to ask you, what are your favorites ever, if you can mention a few? Or who would you like to work with in the future, if you have someone you haven't worked with yet?
I have so many favorites. I got to work with, at least two of them already. Those, they're like guys to me. Paul Thomas Anderson is like, he's incredible. Just so many people. I think what Ryan Coogler is doing right now is incredible. Jordan Peele, what he's doing is insane. There's so many. I can't just to name a few.
Of course. And I would love to have some questions from the public, from the students that are watching us. So please, some questions for John David. Raise your hand. Don't be shy, because in English. Ecco. First row. Prima fila, ce l'abbiamo.
Hi, thank you. You mentioned Christopher Nolan. How is it to work with such a great director?
It was incredible, life-changing experience. He was so giving to the actor. And by that I mean, how I interpret, because I don't know if you've seen the movie, but it's very confusing.
Yeah.
So he was so patient with my stupid questions and my incessant need to make sense and try to map out what I was doing. And a lot of times I was just letting it, like feeling it, and he was okay with that. He had my back. And somebody so established and he's Hitchcock, and he's huge, and yet he still made it feel like an intimate set. He made it feel like it's nothing is more important than getting this scene right and getting everybody comfortable to do this thing, to achieve it. So to me, that was very surprising that somebody that big still cares that much about how to craft a scene.
Do we have any others right now? First row here, prima fila. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for your time here. So I don't want to be rude with this question, but what was it like for you when you started acting? I mean, you've made your way in this world, but your father was also a great actor, and he made a great career. What was it like for you starting, knowing that maybe someone would compare you to what he did?
Good question. Thank you. I had some practice in it because, as you've heard before, I played football, and I got to make it to the NFL. I didn't play. I was sitting on the bench the whole time. But it was interesting. What was happening was no matter what I was doing on the field, I was getting concussions, knee injury, shoulders broken, tore my Achilles. It wasn't me that did it. It was Denzel's son that tore his Achilles. It was Denzel's son that made the NFL. So I was in a whole other industry, and it didn't seem to matter. But my childhood, I've been wanting to do this my whole life. So even like, I'm sorry, I'm a little intimidated because I just get to be here amongst all these artists and seeing these students doing what I love to do and talking about it. So you understand, like, I played football to try to separate myself, and it wasn't working. Even though I was having success on the field, it wasn't working. I'm still his son. So I was prepared. So when I decided I wanted to go for it, and I had to because football was coming to an end, I was sort of depressed and like realizing like something I've been doing my whole life to really cover up what I wanted to do was coming to an end. There's no hiding now, so I got to go for it. I didn't tell him, literally didn't tell him about me auditioning for Ballers. He didn't know I was acting until I booked the role. So those comparisons, like, he's one of the greatest of all time. I will never be him. I can just be the best that I can. And if I can connect to people the way I connected to works he's done and other works I've seen from other people, then that's the goal. If one person says they loved and felt what movie I was a part of, then mission accomplished.
Thank you, John David. I loved your answer. Do we have any more? I think we have still a bit of time. Okay, then I want to segue into a few questions I still have. The student mentioned Tenet, and it's very confusing. I had to watch it a couple of times. Still not sure if I took it the right way.
Same.
Yeah. How did you shoot it, though? How is shooting something so chronological order, or first like the past, the present?
It was so the first week, the vault scene.
Yeah.
We basically, it was like a big, huge stunt dance coordination. So we shot that the first like 10 days. And I love that we did that first, that physicality. So training for the film, I had to learn 4 different fights because I'm fighting myself forwards and backwards, both. So there's 4 different fights I had to learn. And I've never done anything like that before. I never fought somebody backwards. Usually, if you want to win the fight,
Forward.
you're fighting forward. Yeah. So those rules kind of changed. So having to learn those rules and getting acclimated to what Tenet rules are. But it was interesting as I was learning how to fight those stunts, the fight coordination. I started understanding more of the character, what he puts his body through, what he's willing to sacrifice. This guy was willing to risk his life for what he thought was good and righteous. So that really helped. So that, and then we got to, so as I started understanding that physical part of it, I was understanding more the psychological part of it. So starting to shooting that first was very helpful for understanding the script as we did more acting stuff.
So you said you had to fight backwards. Did you also have to say your lines backwards?
Yes.
Because I heard that. Oh my God.
Yes, we had to learn. So there was an app I had where I'd speak the lines into an app,
back to you.
and it says it back to me. Then I have to memorize phonetically what was said.
Oh my God.
Now I feel like that's pretty impressive, but until I saw Kenneth Branagh, who's a phenomenal actor, he did that, but he did it in a Russian accent, and he's not Russian. So that was next level.
Yeah, I can imagine. And before we end the interview, I want to ask you if you can tell us something about some future projects you have, something you're excited about.
Yes. So I have a film coming out later this year called The Piano Lesson, August Wilson. And I'm extremely excited about it because of the writing, to celebrate August Wilson, who's one of the great playwrights, American playwrights. And ultimately, it's a story about family, and it's something relatable on an international level. And I'm so curious when you all hopefully get to see it, what your take is from the African-American experience, but ultimately what your take is from family dynamics and what that looks like.
And then my last question is, can you leave us with a bit of advice for the students here that want to become actors, filmmakers?
Be relentless in your pursuit to be the best you can. No matter what the comments say, no matter what your professors say, no matter whoever in your life says what you can't do or what you think you should be doing, if you believe it, be unrelenting in pursuing it. But do it with love. Understand that we are very lucky to be doing this, and that people will relate to the art that you're putting out, and people will feel you. And that's a great feeling to have.
Ladies and gentlemen, John David Washington, thank you, thank you.